Start recording. And there we go. All right, so I'm recording this to my computer. I'll upload it to YouTube as a like where it can only be shared with people who have the link, and then the other master umpires can watch it if they want, and then they can make their decisions. All right.
I see. Do you need to? God, what's the word?
Go to the
Yes. Do you
bathroom?
need?
No,
No,
I went
no.
before. Have something to eat, get a snack. I did all of that before.
Yeah. Do you need a link for Tabletop Simulator for
Yeah,
the master table?
yeah, that would be a great idea. I was going to ask you to pull it up. I actually do have it open, so all I have to
All
do
right.
is join. There we go,
Yep.
connect, and the
It
password
is.
is.
Yep. The password is IKS lowercase.
That's a great password. Whoever thought of that was a genius.
Yes. Yes, they were.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
All right, let's pick a color. All right, there we go. Orange.
A
I don't
minute.
like orange. I want yellow or teal. I always take yellow when I play games because nobody else takes it.
Really?
Yeah, so whenever I
Hmm.
play like, Euro games or something, not that I play Euro games, I only play the finest war games. But I take yellow. Nobody else bothers with it.
Hmm.
Um okay, so Lake, let's go ahead and talk. First of all, um why did you make the incredible decision to run the 1805 campaign at all? I mean, because that was
Well,
huge.
yes. That's sort of what led to this moment. The reason why I did it was because the original campaign, which became the October War, was really anticlimactic. It's
Hmm.
like there was only one battle, and that was more of a skirmish between Blaureich's cavalry and Jan's Vermilion Corps.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing in the end. Although I was pretty happy with the outcome. It was, though, like you said, anticlimactic, and it was crazy because, like, I was sending off units. I was like getting completely spread out. We had this initial plan that we're going to concentrate,
Yeah,
and they're probably going to be here or here, like Arbeckville or St. Quirin, and so we're going to concentrate there. And if they're not there, we'll march concentrated to the other one, and there'll be this big decisive battle. And then there
excuse me.
just wasn't. There just wasn't. You know.
Yeah, yeah. And so because of that, I thought, well, might as well try and run something to, put a good, either at least put a ribbon on it and, say, this is good. We completed it to a satisfying conclusion, or we just continue on with history. And
Hmm.
I thought, well, now that peace is basically around, now comes the game of diplomacy
Hmm. Hmm.
and talking.
Yeah. Okay.
So I basically had to create a set of rules that essentially simplified down diplomacy to core elements while
Hmm.
still giving the feel of communicating with other nations over long distances
Hmm.
and having still having that communication problem that is always present in Kriegspiel games.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think I think I did well.
Yeah, I think you did too. It had the right feeling to it. I felt, and there was a lot of curiosity. There were a lot of players, and myself probably chief among them, that were absolutely pushing boundaries. Um,
Oh yes.
yeah, mostly through writing news, basically concocting lore, thinking ahead 2 or 3 turns, and things that have carried over now as lore into the perpetual campaign. that I wrote just as news items in yours. I was thinking ahead.
Yeah.
What was your opinion on players doing that?
I was totally for it. I I liked that they did that. You and others did that because it added, a sense of realism. It wasn't just a game; it was a world we were creating
Right.
together.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, did you have people who wanted to play that showed up kind of like later or in the middle? Did you have people constantly coming in trying to get in?
I think I organized things so that that wasn't really the case. If you recall, before the 1805 campaign, I ran a couple, basically a couple polls as
Hmm.
to like, hey, which nations do you want to play? First come, first serve. It was first for national leaders and then for foreign ministers, and basically ran a polls like, okay, so who's applied? All right, I'll send applicants to the national leaders, and they said, all right, just okay, rank these people. You don't have to include everyone, just rank them. And I went through like that, just and so by the time that the game started, I basically told everyone, it's like, hey, you've been selected to join. You're foreign minister for so and so. Congratulations. And if they weren't selected, sorry. Well, better luck next time. I there's not really much I can say that
Hmm.
improves your outlook on this. It's you know
Did you ever
told you
s-
this.
did you ever say no to anyone?
I did not say no to anyone. It was open for anyone to play, and
Hmm.
this was especially interesting because Sam, who made the very controversial decision in the 1804 game,
Hmm.
applied for Zarkana's foreign minister role.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
And as like, yeah, it's like, well, it's like, yeah, he was already somewhat had the slap on the wrist for being
Yeah.
made an outlaw. So it's like, all right, you can come on in. It's fine.
Good. Yeah, I
No hard
think you.
feelings.
Yeah, I like how you've handled that. I'll get back to Sam in a moment. Was there ever an occasion where you said no to a player in the course of the game, like they wanted to do something or they attempted something, and you're like, no, we can't have that. I can't
Uh,
allow that.
what in this game or in diplomacy as well?
Either game, either in
Either
your
game.
umpiring
Okay.
experience, have you said no to a
Um,
player?
I think so. I can't recall anything off the top of my head. Let me look through both servers just to see, and I'll come back and see if I can come up with an example of that. I think I did once or twice.
Hmm.
Can't recall
Can't recall the
immediately.
case.
Yeah, I can't recall the case, though I'm pretty sure I did. And if I didn't, I will correct myself.
No worries. Okay, so we have this policy in the IKS, no war crimes. Yet you
Yes.
let Sam do a war crime, essentially. Why did you allow that? Why not say, wait a minute, stop? We don't do that here.
Um, to clarify for the recording, this was during the October War where there were
Right.
multiple umpires, that I was one of which.
Uh huh.
Um, we allowed that. It's been a while, so I'm gonna basically paraphrase this. We allowed that because, well, it's like there really was no one else for him to say no that could tell him no, you can't do that.
So
There
it's
was
kind of a
no one else
gap in
there.
the
Yeah,
coverage.
it's like
Yeah.
he was the one that was at the top at the moment, and it was basically everyone was away. All higher ups were either dead or in in Arbrickviller.
Yeah.
So there really was no way we could stop it.
Hmm.
Like we could have had a mutiny, but that doesn't really make sense for there to be a mutiny.
Right. That's what I
Just
keep
for an order.
saying. But anyway. So Okay. Let's see here. So we get into the Diplo campaign, and let's see here. Well, the big thing that's on my mind is Jan said, "Let's do a coup." How did you
Yes.
calculate? First of all, why did you allow that to happen to begin with? What
Um,
was your logic there?
Honestly, I didn't allow it. It just happened. The once when that turn, the basically Christmas week turn began, I found at the same time everyone else did. I
Oh
was like,
wow.
oh, whoa. I was like, holy shit, this is happening. Well, looks like I have to play through a coup now.
Okay.
And
So,
so I was like, all right, I'm gonna roll the punches. This is something new, and I'll go with it.
mhm. Then you may had to make some critical decisions, specifically how much force Yan would get. One of the things that he petitioned for, or kind of he kind of wrote this for himself. He wrote himself control of the Imperial Guard, who up till that point was literally absolutely loyal to the Emperor, which was
I
something that
think
Damon and others had established. And then Jan's making off with the guard. Um, what was your process?
if I may correct you, I think you
Go
did
ahead.
say that Jan had the guard. That it was given command of the guard before.
Yet he was given command, but that doesn't mean that he necessarily has their loyalty to commit a coup against the Emperor, right? Because
Yes,
you
and
know what I'm
I'll
saying?
explain. Yes, I understand. I
Mm-hmm.
understand where you're getting at this. Um, the reason why they did march off was because they were not informed of the actual reason.
Mm-hmm.
They were told by him that it was a festival parade
Mm-hmm.
for the holiday in the Ville du Progrès,
Mm-hmm.
and they were only informed of it when your courier arrived
Mm-hmm.
outside in the outskirts of the city. So once when they found out, the loyal elements, those who were loyal to the emperor, uh, were basically were like, okay, we're gonna march back because this is not right. We're gonna march back to our posts because we're not gonna abandon the emperor in this.
Right.
And the ones that were more lenient to, or not lenient, those more loyal to Republican and liberal ideals stayed with stay with Jan
Okay.
and continued on to the Red Service. And I'll explain how I did it a little later, once when that question comes up, if it does.
All right. Okay. Let's see. This crashed for me for some reason. I loading back
Yeah,
in.
it is slow. Just give it a minute. Hopefully,
Okay.
hopefully it will.
So getting into the Christmas coup, how did you determine force allocations for the two sides? Yeah, it's not working.
Oh, okay. Well, you can always rejoin. I'll tell you when it's back up.
Okay.
So how I decided on force allocations
Mm-hmm.
was essentially choosing, basically bringing up the entire Vermilion army in the October War, so that
Mm-hmm.
all commands could at least get into one big battle,
Mm-hmm.
and then added in the elements. Um, Second thing I did was add in the Republican elements, which
Mm-hmm.
were the Blue Guard and the Shadow Corps,
Mm-hmm.
two established bodies. Yeah, okay, it's up now again.
Okay.
Yes, those were two established bodies that were still around and were called up by, or at least either were called up by Jan or would have supported him in any case, even if they were not called up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think I'm back in,
Yep.
and you might want to promote me in case I need to manipulate something.
Oh, yes,
Um,
yes, yes, yes.
and then
There you go.
can you let's see here. So, let's see. How did you decide? How did you set this up? What was your logic when you set this up?
My logic for setting up this and the armies was okay. Yeah, they told me they planned this for 2 weeks out. ahead of time. So, okay, they probably wouldn't have time to make uniforms or flags to differentiate themselves. So, there will be that confusion there of
Mm-hmm.
both sides sharing mostly the same colored blocks,
Mm-hmm.
which I hope caused a sense of confusion as to who's loyal, who's not.
Yeah, I actually thought that was a really cool touch, by the way.
Ah, thank you.
That
Um,
was one of the things you did really well.
the second, the way I also set up was okay. Obviously, the guard's going to be around the palace. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
the gendarmerie is going to be in the city. Red Service, obviously, in the Red Service. I
Mm-hmm.
actually chose Les Invalides for their HQ.
All right.
Yeah, just it made sense for there to be a big complex for them.
Yeah.
And then for the core, I decided that Amelia was going to start in close on board in a clearing, performing field maneuvers, training, and the two um, I don't want to say yeah, two rebel corps were basically encamped in towns near major roads,
Mm-hmm.
and the other imperial forces were laid off map as oncoming reinforcements once when they were informed.
Mm-hmm. Were the two sides balanced?
I did balance them. With what Jan asked for, I knew that they were probably going to have bit more. Um, they were going to have a bit more than if we just left the Imperial side plain on their own, and so I added Heinz's Marines
Mm-hmm.
as one element, the Gendarmerie as another, and I think that was it. But I also knew that the loyalty of units was not going to be straight down the lines. It was not going to be one core was entirely on one side and one core was entirely on another, because nothing is clean cut like that. Maybe for the
Mm-hmm.
Republican raised units, but not for first core, not for third, basically not for any unit,
Mm-hmm.
even the Imperial Guard.
Mm-hmm.
So I rolled on who was going to be supporting the Republicans and who was going to be supporting the Imperial forces.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
sometimes they rolled just in the middle, whereas like they did not side with either and were not going to be a part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And most forces did end up on the game. I will say that.
Okay. Let's see here. Did you have to create any assets for
Any?
the game? And I'm looking at one already, but
Oh yes.
tell me what you
uh,
created and how you did it.
um, really, it was two assets that I created for this game. One was a bit of a combination with Justin,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the map. The map,
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I knew was like, okay, I'm gonna need to find a good map for this, and I immediately thought of Versailles, the
Mm-hmm.
Versailles map that Carter published. But when I tried to go for Paris, there really wasn't much there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked, okay, is there anyone who has a map of it? And if there isn't, I'll look for a map. Fortunately, Justin did have one for an upcoming game. I won't say what, just for his privacy's sake. And he basically said, here, you can use this, and decided to combine the maps using lines to indicate where roads connected on between both maps.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I did a decent job with that as well. The
Mm-hmm.
second thing I made was, I think, something that is useful everything, for everything, even to now, is this new turn tracker.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically, I sort of did this in a roundabout way. I used Google Docs, made two charts, one for AM turns, one for PM turns,
Mm-hmm.
and basically did it that way. Went through GIMP to organize this and crop it all, and then went through and inputted this into the game.
Mm-hmm.
I also used the umpire time and orders collected markers from um, both from Grand Gettysburg,
Mm-hmm. Good.
which I absolutely loved those pieces.
Yeah, no, Damon did a good job on all of that. Um, how did you decide what system of combat to use? It looks like you used brigade system. Why did
I
you choose
used
that system?
it was this is a very simple question because the reason why we used this was because that was what we used during the October War campaign.
Hmm.
And so I thought, well, these units were organized for this system. Might as well still use that system. And it did have a few hiccups in that there were so many dice to roll, and it was a bit. I don't want to say wonky, but it was definitely it had a few hiccups. This system,
Hmm.
and it was noticed during the live stream.
Do you have any regular? Do you have any foot batteries? Here's one.
Yeah, there were foot batteries.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here we go. We have a foot battery here, and we have baddies here. Let's see here. Okay, and I order from this position here. I order uh, artillery fire. How would you resolve that?
Well, first measure the distance to make sure which range it is, and that is 3.1. That is long range, and they are in woods, so they will not get advantage during this combat.
Mm-hmm.
Rolling 2 dice, going to bring them up. So hold on, come on, there we are. Bringing up 2 dice and rolling. All right, and take the lesser one, so no hit on
Okay.
this unit.
Okay, and then what's the rule there?
The rule there, they are uh, beyond 1, but less than 3, so they are in effective range. Rolling 2 dice, I'll take the greater. So it will be a 1 disrupt onto them. Let me
Okay,
collect the marker.
that's okay. And then what about here?
That is canister. So roll 2 and we'll take both.
All right, there you go. All right, yeah, good. Um, did you encounter any situations that were not covered by the rules? And if so, how did you resolve those during the Christmas coup battle?
The situations that were not in the rules. It was mainly during. It was a lot of it was with Jan and his proclamations. He had a lot of plans for getting the Senate together and assembling them
Mm-hmm.
into the Senate building, which is on the Paris version of this map.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right there.
And he wanted to send out proclamations. You did as well, although unfortunately all of them were intercepted before they could reach the city.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to decide, okay, who, what portions of this body are loyal to the emperor, are still have Republican leanings and just got through the filter, or are moderates in
Mm-hmm.
this. And so I had to roll dice and see who was loyal to who, and it was a very complicated uh, God, it was very complicated system to figure out. Okay, what's the exact number of senators who were loyal? How many got out of the city before it was overrun by Republicans?
Mm-hmm.
Who were the splinter group of senators that would join Jan and say, "Hey, we are going. Hey, good, you're here. Excellent. Let's overthrow the government. Let's throw the lawyers into the river."
There you go. Okay, let's see here. Justin had a question, and he asked, with 2020 hindsight, if you were setting up the game, how would you do it differently? And you can answer this both in terms of the Diplo campaign and in terms of the Christmas coup. Go
I
ahead.
will answer for both of them.
Great.
Starting with the Christmas coup, since it's right in front of us, I would have had a second corps, an imperial, mostly imperial unit, start on map because it took a long time for the message to get down from the imperial palace off map,
Mm-hmm.
and then for them to get back up. And they were
Mm-hmm.
basically only reaching the main battle by the time the game ended, and that was partially because of their distance and partially because the Republican loyal forces of this unit uh, basically ran into each other right around here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and basically had a fight. Imperial forces won out. They rested for 30 minutes and then began marching up to Antony and into that fight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And by the time they reached the game was basically over.
Yeah.
So I would have had them on board closer to Mac's position. Probably, I can't really say for certain where, but they would definitely be closer and on board,
Mm-hmm.
so that the Imperials had more of a chance of winning this.
Yeah. Oh, I thought we were doing great until the last turn or two.
Oh yeah, yeah, it
What?
was definitely up in the air until that turn, until that happened. During the diplomacy game, it mainly deals with alt marks. Uh, well, really objectives for both sides. I didn't really set any objectives. I decided, oh, let's try having the players set their own objectives, giving them basically a rundown of, okay, what's their nation's history, what's their personality of the nation,
Mm-hmm.
and let them run with it.
Mm-hmm.
For most nations, they did well, but for some, I won't say who. Okay, I did say Altmark. So Altmark really didn't have much of a objectives, partially because of how they were written as isolationists from the continent. They didn't really have
Mm-hmm.
many diplomatic objectives except stay out of fight and keep the status quo. There wasn't really much interaction, and it sort of showed in how the players played. They didn't really feel much of a connection in it, and if I set up the diplomacy game now, I probably would have set a basically, um, God, I would have set a standard objectives, either primary objectives, and let them come up with their own secondary objectives,
Mm-hmm.
or set down multiple objectives for them right from the get go,
Mm-hmm. All right.
so that everyone could have, a a set goal in mind of like where's the finish line and how am I going to get there.
Okay. Felix asked a somewhat a seemingly related question, but I think it's more of a micro level question. Were there any on the spot decisions that in hindsight you would make different? Maybe that really applies to the battle, because you're
Yes.
thinking, at the street level instead of the 10,000 foot view here.
Yes, yeah. I didn't really have many of those on the fly decisions during the diplomacy game, mainly because it was run essentially play by post. During the main game of the Christmas coup, any decisions that I would have made differently? Well, on the fly decisions, it was mainly during the early hours. This is during the fighting in the streets of Ville du Progrès,
Mm-hmm.
between the Red Gendarmerie and Blue Guard and Imperial Guard that was loyal to the Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
The Republican players of Jan and Sam uh, basically said, "Hey, come join us and you know, like fight for democracy." And in hindsight, the gendarmerie probably wouldn't have sided with them.
No,
But
not
in the
likely.
spur, yeah, in the spur of the moment, I was like, okay, I'm gonna roll and see who joins them. It like, do
Mm-hmm.
some units join them? Do some not join them? And in hindsight, I probably would have said no. They'll just shoot any proposal down. Quite literally, shoot the proposals down
Mm-hmm.
for joining the other side.
Mm-hmm.
That was one on the fly decision that I probably would have made differently.
Okay. I see you have these blue dice out. What are these blue dice for?
Those blue dice are for where the blue guard spawned in.
Ah.
Once when they reach the location of once when word was sent from Jan or someone higher up, hey, summon the masses and summon them, they would have spawned at these locations, and the number on the die correlates to the number of the pieces. So this 3 up here in Montereau corresponds with the
Ah. Okay.
blue command, and
Yeah.
so they would have spawned in here. This one
Mm-hmm.
in Gently it corresponds with the 27th Infantry here, and so they would have spawned here, so on and so forth.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Felix also asks, what was the most surprising thing that happened? A decision by a player, outcome of a fight, etc.
I think that's a very easy question in
Yeah, I think it
hindsight.
is too.
That was and that is the betrayal of third division
Yeah.
to the Republican side, and that is funny for multiple reasons. When I have originally decided who was going to be loyal to the Republicans and who was going to be loyal to the Imperials, I knew I wanted to have one player that basically was in the order of battle for one side and switch over to the other.
Mhm.
And it initially was Third Division, who
Mhm.
was originally part of Republican Third Corps, but was loyal to the Imperials.
Mhm.
And then Cirrus switched sides,
Mhm.
and so okay, it looks like Third Corps' command just went Imperial, so he's the one who's staying put, and it's First Division who is switching over to the Republicans and staying
Mhm.
with them. And so on with the battle it goes. We get to the live game. Plato gets in command of Third Division, and this is sort of what's it called? Oh my god, what's administrative oopsie. I
Yeah.
accidentally gave him Republican tags instead of the Imperial ones he was supposed to.
Mhm.
And I quickly switched that out shortly after the game started. And he told me that, he was just going to run with this idea
Mhm.
of, him being a secret Republican, which is funny because he was intended to be the turncoat for the other way around. The
Mhm.
Republican who switched sides to become Imperial. Instead, now he's the Imperial switching sides to become Republican after his superior switched from Republican to Imperial. It is
Mhm.
complicated and it's hilarious to me. I don't
It's
know if anyone else finds it
heartbreaking.
hilarious. Yeah,
Heartbreaking to me.
heartbreaking for you, but it's hilarious for the umpires who are there. We all went to his channel and just like, you're seriously doing this? You're going to
Oh
do
boy.
this?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Let me double check. I don't think there's any other questions in the Discord. Pretty sure there's not. Let's see here. Yeah, I think we're good there. Um, I think from my perspective, hey Carter, I'm doing something here. I'm recording. Are you going home? Okay. Okay.
Uh, is that a
Sorry.
friend of yours?
Yeah, it's my son's cousin is here.
Ah, I
Um,
see.
let's see here. Let's see. I think from my perspective, one of the things I would want to see is for you to have the confidence to deny requests or draw boundaries or things like that.
Yes.
You know,
Yes, that reminds me. I'm going to look through this just to.
because and it's the reason I'm throwing that out there is because I have the same problem. I have a big problem with telling people no, they can't join a game, um, because and it just multiplies my headache and my workload. I just have a hard time, and I go to my teaching. I've always had a hard time telling a student, no, you can't join the class or whatever. I've always accepted transfers and everything. It's always a yes for me,
Yeah.
even though it means now I've got ridiculous workload. Um, but at the same time, I think saying no can also be a virtue, and it can keep things focused and moving along. So, something that I would want you to consider, maybe, I don't know. Just think about that as you plan future events, because players are really going to push the boundaries. They always push. I'm
Oh,
getting it right
yes.
now in the perpetual campaign. Everybody's like, well, I want this gargantuan army, and I want this massive navy. And by the way, we've got this going on and that going on, and basically, they're jockeying for
Yes.
an advantage right
Yeah.
out of the gate. And I have to think, well, how much of that should I grant? Because if I grant it, then it's going to mean the scenario will be imbalanced in some way. At the same time, um, if I grant something, I have to take something else away. I have to impose a liability. Hence, I'm working with Nick to do this economic system where if you want to have a big military or a big navy, that's fine, but now it's going to cost you over here. Now you're going to have a hard time providing luxuries for the people which are in demand or
Yeah.
things like that. So, um,
Uh, I learned to not say no. Well, and I don't want to say learned. The reason why I didn't really say no much is because I'm from the D&D group.
mhm,
I try to when running D&D campaigns, I've tried to reward creativity
right.
in coming up with a unique solution that I didn't think of to a problem I've put
Hmm.
forward.
Hmm.
And so, it's like if someone comes up with a unique idea, it's like, hey, let's, this is not going the way we want it to. Let's try a coup. It's like, okay, let's see how it goes. Maybe it works out for you. Maybe it doesn't.
Hmm. Yeah. I think it helps too to have kind of a general overall sense of where do I want to go for this campaign? What's the purpose of this campaign? And
Yes.
when Damon and Alex established the original Red versus Blue, the idea was Vermilion had an emperor, that's Napoleon. Napoleon's eventually going to steamroll across not Europe. And having that in mind then gives you a very easy decision. So like, oh, there's going to be a coup. Well, actually, no, there's not. That destroys the purpose of the original campaign. But it wasn't theirs to run. It was yours to run, and you
Hmm.
made the decision on your own criteria. And I think that's fine. When you're the master umpire, you're not necessarily going to do things the same way somebody else would do them or did do them.
Yeah.
I think it was an exciting experience. I had a very good time. And for me, the value that came out of it was being introspective and thinking, well, if I really were an emperor, how quickly would I turn to autocracy, to tyranny, to doing this, that, or the other thing, to secret police actions, secret trials, underhanded things? How quickly would I turn to these things in order to accomplish what I want? How would I react to frustration? Would I react to it by saying, well, that didn't work out, or would I respond to it with some kind of hard power or in some other fashion? And so I think in that regard, your your masterpiece worked brilliantly, you know, because now instead of just having played a Kriegspiel diplomacy and a Kriegspiel battle, I've gained and grown and learned in some way. Which, if you get to the purpose of Kriegspiel, it's to teach you. And it's not just to teach you tactics or strategy or whatever, it's also to teach you about yourself. Because if the
Yeah.
officer understands themselves, well, I mean, insert cliche there, right?
Yeah.
So I think
And
it, I think it was wonderfully run. I think it was just fine. So
I will say, I
go
will
ahead.
say, I I never imagined that anyone would get this out of
Yeah.
the diplomacy game. I just made the rules to not only be, you know, accurate to what things were at the time,
Hmm.
but also simple enough for one person to run. That one person being myself. And when you told me in the moment, it's like there was so much introspection of like what would I have done actually in this situation. I never expected that.
Hmm.
I I never expected any of that, and I think that really is a testament to the rules I made.
Hmm.
I'm not trying to be brag about it, but I think I did a damn good job at it
Yeah. Well,
in hindsight.
you got something right. So
Yeah.
you deserve credit for that. So all right. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude the interview. Is there anything else you want to add or ask? before I end the recording?
Um, I will say that I will not say much about umpiring in that. I will just say my reaction from Kriegspiel, just to give a basic overview of what this has meant for me. Before I found out about Kriegspiel, I was just basically there was a pause in my life. I had to drop out of classes because of COVID, and I was basically playing games and figuring out, preparing for the next steps. What's the next step for me? What am I going to take? What am I going to do? And once when I found out about Kriegspiel, I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. This is not only a war game, historical war game, already 2 good
Hmm.
points for me. This also is a community that I can help and be a part of and grow. And this, I feel so overjoyed that it has become all of this. And I don't mean to, I don't mean to pray or not praise, just try and get some pity points or something, whatever. But you created this, and this is such an amazing community to be a part of, and so wonderful. And I will stay a part of it until the day I die or the community is gone, and whichever one comes first. It is amazing. This is an amazing community, and I honestly don't care if I get the master umpire credentials or not. I'm just happy to be a part of it
Oh, we're happy to
and to
hear
left
you
my mark
say
on
that.
this.
We're happy to hear you say that. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I think you've done the work to earn it. And again, it'll be up to the other umpires or masters to vote. But we'll see how that goes. And
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes us crazy guys can do some real good in the world. In fact, we're usually the ones who do. So, for
Oh
better or for
yes.
worse. so, so, all right. Thanks. Thank you, Lake. I'm going to stop the recording.